Eat to Heal. My name is Amy Moore, and I'm reviewing the video called Eating by Mike Anderson. This is a very innovative video. It was very revolutionary when it first came out, and it helps us get a historical perspective on the thinking of how people were perceiving food and health in response to a health crisis. So the video really, I think, would be helpful for people to watch that have a history of maybe they're facing a cancer diagnosis, type 2 diabetes, Alzheimer's, fibromyalgia, arthritis, asthma, erectile dysfunction, different heart problems that people have. All would benefit from watching this video. It's a 90-minute video, and the producer was Mike Anderson. He interviews several people, and we learn so much about healthy eating and why a plant-based raw diet is the diet for humans to eat. One of the most impactful things that I saw when I watched the video was they looked inside of an artery and pulled out the plaque. So that's the hardening of the arteries that's happening, and that plaque is building up because that's of that saturated fat, and they pull it out of the artery, and then you can see how constricted the blood circulation was in the arteries and veins of the person that was eating this standard American diet, the SAD diet, the diet that makes us sick and depressed. I was really interested in the video because they had so many different people that they interviewed. One of the other things I learned is that Carl Lewis had his most successful year the first year he became plant-based. So he hit like his highest records and broke all these records when he was plant-based. And so I think people that we admire, we want to hear, how did they do that? How did they succeed? How did they excel? How did they beat their own personal best? And that was one of the things I took away. Another thing I learned is that the diet that we're eating today, we're eating 250% more meat than the diet when we lived in an agrarian society. So I think a lot of people like to think that these like home foods or this home cooking that we were raised on is kind of part of this old-fashioned time in our society, and it's not. That is not how healthy people live. And they talk about the politics, and so we learn about subsidies and how the corn subsidy and the wheat subsidy, and those are foods fed to animals and then put on the plate. So the subsidies also talk a little bit about the power dynamic in our country. And at the time that this video was produced, it was when we had the food pyramid. Now we have My Plate, which isn't much better, but the My Period, which the pyramid, the food pyramid, which really put priority on dairy and cheese and meat and grains. And sugars, right? And sugars and oils were even included as if we needed those things in our diet, which we don't. So the video was really interesting, but they talk about who sat on the committee to make that food pyramid. And My Plate, our updated version, is still co-opted by these industries that have a financial interest in us eating packaged, processed, sugar-laden foods that aren't good for us, that standard American diet, the SAD diet. So it's just a nice way. Watching this video really just helped me boost up my commitment to eating a plant-based raw diet. And one last thing I wanted to mention is that the author says that the SAD diet is against God's will. And I was thinking about that in terms of Lent and the Garden of Eden, right? Adam and Eve were in the Garden of Eden. They were provided. God provided them with everything they needed, and those were plants, fruits and vegetables and plants. That's really the diet that we were that we are intended to eat by God. And I thought that was a really nice message for this time with Lent just beginning, to help us reinvest in ourselves and our commitment to eating a plant-based diet.